Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and expert in Warner Bros. Discovery. I've been covering everything on Warner Bros. Discovery for the last 3 months or so. We've done 97 videos so far. Looks like this is 98. There has been an incredible update or two on James Gunn's DC Studios. You don't really even hear them mention Peter Safran anymore. He's supposed to be the co-CEO, but all we keep doing is getting updates about James Gunn said this, James Gunn tweeted that, now James Gunn has made this decision. It seems to be all James Gunn's decision to do whatever he wants to do. I definitely think that David Zaslav, CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, has just basically said, sure, James Gunn, we're going to give you a shot. Do your thing. And he's got an eye on what they're doing, but basically he's got confidence that James Gunn can do what they want done with the DC Studios characters. There is a lot of work to be done. It is very creative. There's a lot of things they need to develop and create, but it is incredibly shocking to see Henry Cavill removed as Superman, because in October, we were just told publicly, Henry Cavill made an announcement, the studio okayed it, right before Gunn and Safran came on as heads of DC Studios. But I mean, they must have had some conversations, you would think. We heard that Henry Cavill was coming back as Superman, but not part of James Gunn's plan. That was approved by David Zaslav. So what is James Gunn's plan? His plan is to do a young Superman. And as such, as he said, James Gunn, this is from Bounding Into Comics, James Gunn claims the reason Henry Cavill is out as Superman is very simple. He's a different age. So James Gunn wants a younger Superman for the story that he's writing himself. He won't direct it, but he's been working for the last few months to do his own Superman story. And this is part of their larger continuity and their larger story. This is still really surprising to me. Just a few days ago, we were told that the DCU's biggest priority, a huge priority per tweet by James Gunn, was Superman. So how could you get rid of Henry Cavill? Well, Superman's a character. He's not an actor. And actors play Superman. So, okay, you can follow that logic. That makes enough sense. You can see why Patty Jenkins might have been mad a little bit, because apparently, I don't know what they would have wanted Patty Jenkins to do. It doesn't seem like anything she could have done would have fit in with what James Gunn wants to do. Not to say that Patty wasn't bratty. She seems like she was. Who knows what James Gunn's plans are? But what it seems like his plans are is no Henry Cavill, and the rest of these existing actors, no roles for them as these characters. Now, in thinking about it, and I have thought about this over the last couple of days, if I was going to do what Zaslav, James Gunn, Peter Safran, even though he's pretty quiet and in the background, what they've said they wanted to do with the DCU, which was to have continuity between games, TV shows, films, animation. They want the same characters. They want the same actors having the same experiences. They want the stories to all interconnect and mean something. That means you're going to need a lot of Batman appearances, a lot of Wonder Woman, a lot of Superman appearances, a lot of other characters are going to have to appear. There's going to be a lot of demand on these people. And basically, they have to look young and good for at least 10 years worth of 10 years of plans. And 10 years of plans, is going to be what, 12, 13 years of when production is going to come out and things like that. So you do probably need to recast everyone. I can understand that. I can understand why, if you take Henry Cavill and you say, well, let's just make Man of Steel 2. It's like, well, you can't really. And here's why you can. Tell me if you don't agree in the comments below, please. Or if you do agree. But you can't just what Zack Snyder was doing. And interestingly, the Zack Snyder fans are upset with Gunn. The non-Zack Snyder fans who love the characters are upset with Gunn. But you can't really do a Man of Steel 2. Look at where Superman was left after Man of Steel and after Superman vs. Batman. And you're going to take that Superman and you're going to do a completely different take on him and do one movie with Henry Cavill, let's say. And then what are you going to do? Recast Superman again? And then reboot the story and be like, well, it's now Superman in this part of his character arc, continuing on from where Man of Steel left off and the Snyder version. You kind of can't do that. You have to kind of reboot everything. So you know who the characters are. You know where the character is about. The question is, what part of the character's arc are you going to start in? Where Superman, say, first gets his powers and he starts to become confident using them, but maybe he's not sure about whose behalf he should use them for, his own decision, like maybe he should align with the American government, maybe not. Should he align with different groups? Those kinds of questions. And then, what results from decisions he makes with who he decides to align with. Where are you going to start Batman from? Where are you going to start Wonder Woman from? You can't do something new and then pick up everything old. You really can't. So if they're going to have this continuity and they're not just going to bang out another Black Adam movie, which they certainly don't look like they're going to be doing at this point, you can't just do these one-off films. That's why, like, when The Rock was talking about, oh, I want to do Black Adam versus Superman, it's like, well, it just doesn't make any sense. You can't do that, because where would that fit in with the continuity? And then, of course, that was going to be Henry Cavill as Superman. So it's just really about, it doesn't fit in story-wise with a larger story. So this is going to be about character arcs, large stories that are interacting with smaller stories and other characters. And James Gunn is definitely one for putting in odd characters. We hear that Jason Momoa will not be Aquaman anymore after Aquaman 2, but he'll come back as Lobo. It's possible Henry Cavill could come back in the future as maybe a Kingdom Come older Superman. We don't know about that. I'm sure he'd be agreeable to do it. So we just don't know. And I think the thing that is the strangest about all of this is that in this age of social media, we get updates on major decisions either through leaks or through James Gunn just casually tweeting in response to some non-verified person on Twitter, where they ask, well, are you going to do something with Superman? He's like, oh yeah, well, Henry Cavill's not going to do Superman anymore. And it wasn't exactly it. But it just seems like it's just there's no planning in terms of releasing the information and making sure that people get a chance to understand. I was absolutely floored and shocked when I heard Henry Cavill was not going to be Superman, because I was expecting it and he was such a great Superman. But sure, I understand that if you want Superman to be in, let's say, a third of whatever DC productions you're doing, you might want that. That's a tremendous number of appearances, and Henry Cavill's great, but you're going to really have the same act. He's going to make the commitment to really do that for 10 years. Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot, I think she's fantastic. She's a fantastic Wonder Woman. I don't know how much he wants to use Wonder Woman as a character over their 10-year plan. I assume a lot. How does she fit in? I'm expecting all of them to get recast. Ezra Miller, of course, to get recast. Jason Momoa is just leaving. I don't know why, if you had Jason Momoa, you wouldn't put him into something like Lobo versus who would pick Aquaman for a character. It made a lot of money. It worked, but that was like miraculous. So it's justified to go ahead and be like, yeah, this is why we're all in a panic over James Gunn's what seems like to be random decisions, but they're really not random decisions. And it really is necessary that if you're going to do a major effort and the films are going to build on each other, go thinking back to Marvel Phase 1 when they were doing things that made some sense. 6 films that interconnected, they came together eventually and appeared as the Avengers. That is the kind of thing that they want for the DCU for a straight 10 years. So you really need to start fresh in terms of storylines, in terms of continuity. There's no way to transition it. It would be nice if there was a way. Like, well, maybe they could just do one more Justice League with the original characters. It's like, well, it's not trivial to do something like that. To do it and to make money doing it and to get all the characters involved, it's difficult. Gal Gadot was making $300,000 on Wonder Woman 1 and then $10 million on the second Wonder Woman. The third Wonder Woman, she was supposed to get $20 million. She's worth all that. She's easily worth more than $300,000 too, of course. You know, even just thinking about, like, would you bring these characters back for another Justice League? What would the budget of that movie even be? And then you're reestablishing for consumers, like, oh, these are the actors playing these characters and their own personalized take on these characters. It doesn't make sense for all the storytelling that you need to do. It doesn't really make sense for continuity. It doesn't make sense for the relationship with the actors. You kind of need to start fresh and reestablish them. James Gunn did take what seemed to be a lot of goofy characters with Guardians of the Galaxy. I was very surprised that that was successful. It doesn't mean that all of his takes on the characters are going to be successful. He's said he's writing this young Superman, and obviously that's approved. He's going to do what he's going to do with that. I don't know if it's going to be a 20-year-old Clark Kent or if it's going to be, 25 years old, where he's going to be in the character's arc, but it's going to be young enough that he's going to have, 10 years essentially worth of stories to tell with Superman as that main character. I'm sure whatever they do with Batman, and Matt Reeves is apparently going to be separate from all this. With the Robert Pattinson Batman, that's going to continue in its own separate universe. But the stories that James Gunn is going to be planning to tell, you do have to start fresh because there's just too much going on. And look, Snyder's take, the Snyderverse, was very specific to Snyder. there's really no way to take his storylines and his take and incorporate that into some other larger master story. If you're going to do that, then you're going to have Snyder running the whole thing. They don't have Snyder running the whole thing. And also, some people were disappointed with it. I thought Batman vs. Superman was okay, but, it wasn't great. And they need great. The stories need to make sense. There shouldn't have been a Batman versus Superman if you think about it. Develop the individual characters, get them on a schedule. Certainly Wonder Woman 2 never should have happened. So they've had so many false starts. They do need to wipe the slate clean, plan out what they're going to do properly, get buy-in from young actors, people who are able to invest a big chunk of their career in what they're doing with this, and then James Gunn needs to impress everybody. But the one thing that he could certainly do a lot better is understand, look, when you let out that, by the way, Henry Cavill's not playing Superman, it's a big deal. It caused a lot of upset. Additionally, we're going to be getting rid of these other cast members apparently, but we're retaining Amber Heard when everybody hates Amber Heard. And apparently the reason why they have to do that is so much money was already spent on action sequences. From the top, Zaslav allowed a lot of reshoots of Aquaman 2, but it did it on a very limited budget. It wasn't going to be unlimited spending, so you can't just trivially recast her and maintain that budget. That's all understandable, but they need to find a better way to communicate what they're doing so they can create some positive excitement. There are so many fans who are interested in seeing a superhero universe that isn't Marvelized, that isn't woke, won't be woke, but people want to start to see some evidence of that, and they want to see it right now. So let me know if you agree with that in the comments below. You think the major problem here is just tell us what it is you're going to do and do it in a way that sounds good. Make sure people know it's not going to be woke and get people excited about it rather than not being clear about whatever it is that they're going to do and just trivially mentioning things on Twitter that are obviously going to disappoint either Snyderverse fans or disappoint other DC fans. You have to get people enthusiastic about whatever it is that you're doing. When James Gunn says he's really focused on Superman, he's thinking about the character that he's writing. He's not thinking about Henry Cavill. Audiences are thinking about Henry Cavill as Superman. And hopefully that's become a little bit more obvious to him by now. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Where do you think James Gunn went wrong specifically? And if you can be specific about it, I appreciate it. Some really great conversations that we have in the comments. You guys have some great ideas. He's been on the right track, but he's definitely creating a lot of upset, panic, and concern, at least by a lack of communication, if not by straight out wild decisions that don't seem to make sense. I understand the recast. I understand the problems with continuity and tying stories together. I get that. It's so much easier to go from a fresh foundation. But let's see what you guys think about that. Please be sure you're subscribed to the channel, click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.